Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Everyday People, the podcast, Married Men Edition. Fellas, ring check.
2 weeks in a row.
There it is. There it is.
2 weeks in a row.
We're getting back into the conversation. Appreciate all the love and support we've gotten so far. Share, like, subscribe, send your comments. We definitely love the commentary and just folks conversing about what you're seeing. It is give us some ideas, give us some things you might want to see us talk about. We're four young men just trying to navigate this world and trying to do it Christ way, as we talk about in church, trying to be Christ-like. And so sometimes you take L's within this world by trying to do it the Lord's way, but we're trying to be okay with that. We're trying to be sufficient in the grace that He gives us. Trying to have some fun, trying to educate and let you guys get a chance to know us and just keep things going. We ended last episode with a teaser. There's a question on the floor, and we're going to jump back into it. Elric, what was the question that you had for Kevin?
So the question I had was, how do you explain the advice that you gave last week about basically if I can't provide, protect, or do all that stuff in my household, even though I don't have time to do anything for myself, I need to find the strength to tap into that and trust my faith and trust God. Mm-hmm. So how do you explain how to tap into that strength for a person that may not know God or may not have that strong relationship with God like you do?
Well, that's I would say the best way that I can probably explain that would just simply be through previous experiences. When you maybe would ask that person what hurdles they might have gone through, and if there would have been a situation where they feel like they didn't know how they even got out of it, and then would have been like, okay, that can be a moment, okay, you were able to find something that you didn't know even existed. That was something that was already deep down in you. That might have been the Spirit speaking to you. That might have been that thing that was just that the God that's actually in you, actually having to pull things out, because that's when we go back into always something that we always will say, where God looks out for us when we can't even look out for ourselves. We're not even thinking about Him. He's got our back. He's still providing. He's still, making that way. But I would just say to try to stay positive as much as possible, and just try to think that it's something that's always getting thrown out a lot, is that, people always just say it's a higher power. Mm-hmm. They may not believe in God, but I think there's a higher power. There's a higher, there's a source greater than us.
Or the universe.
The universe, or whatever it may be. But at least how I see it, what I believe, no, there's a creator. There's one who has laid all of these things in place, and He's at least done that for me. He's created me in His image, and I'm trying to live as best as I can through what He has set up from His law and, just His word breathed into me. That's a way I can put it for someone, who may not necessarily believe. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the way I would put it.
Okay. That's, I hope for the listeners you are just hearing, especially as he's put in the previous episodes, got two young girls, hasn't been married that long, been going to church all of his life, but he's recently started to do this more seriously within the last 10 years. And so there's still plenty of things that he's encountering, just going through, trying to come up with solutions, come up with answers that are concrete, creating his own bag, his own tricks of things to go to when situations happen, and trusting in it. Yeah. And so, being able to have your tools and your go-tos, and sometimes when this walk, we see the armor, and it's like, do I know how to use it? And then trying to figure out if I can skillfully use what this word is saying that is at my disposal, so that I can come out victorious in whatever it is that I'm going through. Mm-hmm. And this way he was talking about concerning folks that don't know God per se, whether they say it's the universe, Sky Daddy, however you want to put it, just that the figure, the nature, Mother Earth, whatever it is. You know, we believe that the Bible has something in there for everyday living. That's something that my granddad just put on us since we was kids. And the Bible has answers for all of this stuff. And I think, Kayam, you got kind of a solution to the people that will just kind of naturally say that, well, I don't need God to be good. I know the answers already without having to read the Bible or him tell me that I need to be better. What does it say in Scripture that you came across?
So we came across Romans 2, verse 12 through 15. And I'm reading from the King James Version. And it reads this way. For as many as have sinned without law shall also perish without law. And as many as have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these, having not the law, are a law unto themselves, which we shew the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the mean while accusing or else excusing one another. So what does that mean in plain man terms? Because the King James is confusing me. So how could we word that a little bit differently?
Ooh, that old English, man.
Right.
So I'm going to go back, and like Kayam said, that old English trips folks up, especially when the themes are very close and how they go back and forth within their wording. And so I'm going to read it again in the easy to read English version. And just listen out. People who have the law and those who have never heard of the law are all the same when they sin. So get that out of the way first and foremost. Just because you may not have sat in church, just because you don't subscribe to who God is or who Christianity is, you're still held accountable. But before you get your drawers in a bunch, let me keep going. It says, people who don't have the law and are sinners will be lost. And in the same way, those who have the law and are sinners will be judged by the law. Hearing the law does not make people right with God. So for all those that think that just because you go to church, that's enough. No, it's not. There's more to it. They will be right before him only if they always do what the law says. Those who are not Jews don't have the law, but when they naturally do what the law commands without even knowing the law, then they are their own law. This is true even though they don't have the written law. They show that in their hearts they know what is right and wrong, the same as the law commands, and their conscience agree. Sometimes their thoughts tell them that they have done wrong, and this makes them guilty. And sometimes their thoughts tell them that they have done right, and this makes them not guilty. So, God is giving you an identity, even though you don't quite understand what your identity is. You may think that you're something else, but even if you don't actively pursue him, if you don't have an active relationship with him, if you're not even seeking him, he's saying that all of the good attributes about your life, your good character, your good moral standing, because a lot of folks will argue with you and say that you're nothing without Jesus, you're this, you're that, and you're like, well, I'm a good person, I don't need to go to church. No, God has already claimed you within the scripture. You are his, and the good that's within you came from somewhere, and it came from him. So whether or not, if you are skillful enough to be able to split the scripture, figure out what's what, the good that is in you, the inherent good, God gave it to you. He gave it to you. It wasn't anything that you just picked up on your own. There is an overarching good that we all understand. And so for the people that like to sit up and say, well, I have my own set of rules, and the same way that you got your set of rules, this person has a set of rules, but you all understand we might not agree on most things, but we all understand that doing stuff to kids is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
because we all have an understanding what's right and what's wrong in the big picture, and this came from somewhere.
Yeah.
You didn't have to read the Bible to understand that. God just gave it to you. And so for the people, going back to the original conversation, for the people that don't have a relationship and don't know how to tap into that, sometimes, depending on the person, they use it as a cop-out. Because the good is already there. If I don't want to be out on the street, I got to go to work. I got to lay down my leisure time so that I can still have my needs met for my family. You ain't got to read the Bible to know that. Some people do, but you ain't got to read the Bible to know that. There's just there's a discipline that comes from, you are disciplined so that you can stay comfortable. And when you get outside of being comfortable, you get outside of your discipline, you mess up your lifestyle of being comfortable. And just, I think what happens is Scripture brings color to what we've already started within our picture. And then it just starts to bring light to who Jesus is, where he may have been hiding in the shadows to where you didn't have a name for what it was, you was just operating. But I think a lot of times as married men, our women are usually the ones that are the keepers when it comes to trying to be more religious. They're the ones doing the praying. They're the ones that making sure that the kids are in different activities. And a lot of times the men are either staying at home, they're not going, they're just not participating at all. And the way that we believe, in order for this thing to have real power and structure, we gotta be over it. Yeah. That true.
Yeah.
And so that means you rarely get the acknowledgement when it goes right, but you darn sure gonna get the blame when it goes wrong.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so and that's just what you signed up for.
Yep.
And pressure's made for shoulders. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta be able to help our ladies, help the babies, because they get faced with all this different type of stuff at school, with their coworkers, family, relatives, whatever it is, and we got to make sure that the message is consistent at home, so that they know what goes in, what comes out when it's time for us to talk and figure stuff out. But I mean, that was a dope answer on how y'all put it down. Dope scripture, where'd you pull that up from? But are we good on that? We ready to jump into the next thing?
Yeah, I say so.
All right, so I think for the next conversation, we're going to jump into how do we build, well, how do we give advice for building practical, long-lasting, good marriage relationships? So, you've been married how many years?
2.5.
And y'all been together how long?
About 9 years.
Okay. What's you?
Been married about a year and a half,
Uh-huh.
and then been together for about 3.
Oh, she been playing around.
He said, "No, you mine."
What options? You ain't got
I ain't gonna feel. I am the field.
Right.
Play me.
What's yours?
Let's see. My 1 year is actually coming up in October, being married, but I've
Okay.
been with her for 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we had year number 4 in April, and then total time we've been together 9 years. So how to build practical, good relationships. We'll kind of circle the room real quick. I'm gonna make it spicy.
Oh Lord!
Wow.
I'm gonna make it spicy.
Oh, I done got hot, sweating.
We got too spicy for pepper.
Right. So, Kyle,
Yeah.
what? How would you say what is some good advice on how to get your woman on your page when she don't necessarily, y'all may have started out on opposite ends. How do you rein her in on, I'm the man, I know what we're supposed to be doing, this is it, this is the right way? How do you get her to turn over into, look, I'm the priest of this household, this is what we're doing?
I leave it to God. But in all seriousness, she already has this understanding of how this needs to be.
Okay.
So that makes it easier. But I just remind her. And when I say remind her, I don't slap her around or anything. But
I hope not.
Oh, like this done turned to an ugly turn. Hey, cut the camera on.
I don't do none of that, but when I say I remind her of just how this needs to function.
Yeah.
And if you want to succeed, we gotta succeed. If you want me to succeed, you gotta succeed too. And if you're doing this, I'm doing this with you. We're here together. And while she understands that, that's what makes it easier. That's what keeps us going.
Sounds like Kayem takes a smart approach and taps into the part of his woman that thrives on being the helpmeet, which is very smart. It's very smart to do that. We got two others that we're going to jump into and have them answer that question next episode. We're going to touch on this conversation, how to build lasting relationships through practical advice on having a good, strong marital relationship. And if you are a married man, tap in, leave your comments. What's some things that you and your wife do? What are some things that you have seen? We'll definitely look at the comments to see where we go from there. But we'll jump back into this conversation next episode. Fellas, it's always a pleasure chatting with y'all. We'll get back into this next time. But be on the lookout to hear what Elle, Kev, and I have to say concerning this conversation. Y'all be blessed. We'll see y'all again next week.